We have time for one or two questions. Please go to the microphone if you want to ask a question. Now is the time to do so. Questions? Yes?
From the Mohawk community, traditional. Philippe d'abord. Oui, Philippe.
Je profite de cette assemblée pour informer les gens.
I would like to tell people that 130 kilometers from here in Lac Saint-Pierre, there is the testing center from the Canadian Army, Nuclear Testing Center. From 1991 to year 2000, we have denounced the Army. They had been launching 500,000 bombs. We never knew if these types of bombs or shell that we're using had some uranium or not. We have been asking. We have tried to use radiation detectors, and we never got the answer. So here in Canada, there are 5 million of these types of weapons that are produced in Le Gardeur. So this is not a question. This is just for information purposes. I understand. Thank you.
Problems that people have about nuclear weapons is the ability to visualize exactly what they will do. And at Dr. Caldicott's symposium on nuclear weapons at the end of February in New York, one of the things that I was introduced to that I think people would find very interesting is a site put together by a man named Alex Wellerstein called nuclearsecrecy.com/nuke map. And what it is an interactive site where you can plug in a location, the size of a bomb, and you can click on what the casualties are, and it will show you the bomb radius, be it from Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Bravo, any of them. You can see what that is, and if you wait for about 2 minutes, it will cycle through and tell you how many people were killed, would be killed by a bomb of this sort, and how many people would be injured by a bomb. And you can see the radius that it goes out from the point of detonation. I think this is one of the most powerful tools that we have for people who can't visualize, who have never understood exactly what happens with a nuclear bomb, to give them a visual. And once they see that, I think it's very difficult for them to continue forward unless they're truly sociopathic or psychopathic. So again, it's nuclearsecrecy.com/nuke map, or you can just Google nuke map. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this information. And final question, maybe a question this time?
Yes, this is a question, and this is kind of addressed to Mrs. Caldecott, but also to Ariel. And because it goes south of the border, okay? In North America, what our native friends call Turtle Island, okay, we have history. How do we educate? So I'm going to send this back to you in a question. How I believe we educate, and I would like your opinion on it, how I believe we can help educate the American public is go back historically and reintroduce the American public to the history of the treaties between the original peoples and the original elders, let's say coming from the European continent to begin with, but not necessarily exclusively, okay? If we can introduce the American public to its own history of the Truro Wampum Treaty, for example, okay? So can we reach the American public, of course using media strategy, but educational, popular education, as well as academic education, as where the original agreements, the thinking behind the agreements of safety between the two different civilizations, can we reach the American public and the other publics maybe elsewhere on this planet with this? Thank you.
Vous comprenez c'est quoi le wampum à deux rangées? C'était traité.
Maybe I can explain it, Pierre, quickly, or
No, we
explain
don't
it to him,
have time.
maybe.
Sorry, the conference must
It's a
go on.
non-interference treaty, is really what it is. But it's a collaborative treaty. If there's an environmental danger, then we have to collaborate. That is North America's first comprehensive intercivilizational treaty. I think we need to study it more, and we need to educate ourselves more about it.
Well, it's an excellent idea, and of course Indigenous populations, including the Aborigines in Australia, you know how to look after the earth, and we don't. I'd say that for me as a Caucasian. But still a question remains, how do you get onto the American media? If you think of Greenpeace, they're pretty good at it. They climb the cooling towers of reactors, and then people say with a microphone, what are you doing that for? And then you can say why. I thought of going on from what you said, of an action called BAP, Babies Against the Pentagon. At a certain point, when the Senate's debating nuclear weapons issues, you release hundreds of naked toddlers into the Senate chamber, because they're the symbols of what we want, and the senators clean up the mess. You know, and I'll just end with some really crazy thing, but it's hard to crack the media these days, but now it's getting to be summer. This maybe, I mean, you won't do this, but it's a thought. When Y2K was happening and the rollover with the computers, and people were really scared that there could be meltdowns or nuclear weapons could be released, I went to the White House, spoke to the Pentagon. They said all's well. They lost their computers for 8 months over the rollover. I was at a conference where Gorbachev was next door, and Patch Adams, the clown, he went to the microphone because we couldn't get any media attention at all. This is the crux. And he said, I've been telling Helen since August we should take our clothes off and walk across America. And I thought, oh, God, Patch. So I went to the mic and I said, who'll take your clothes off? All the hands in the auditorium went up, like that. So he went out into this sort of velvet red foyer, and Patch took his clothes off, and I thought, oh, well, I will too. But I kept my scarf on to cover the naughty bits. And my pearls, and then everyone was naked, and then I thought, what will we do? So we led them out onto Van Ness, and it was cold. We started walking down the street, and then someone started chanting, nudes, not nukes, nudes, not nukes, and cars were pulling up and looking and clapping. They didn't know what we were doing or why, and I realised how vulnerable and how beautiful, as a physician, every human body is. Fat, thin, doesn't matter. Human bodies are beautiful, and we are incredibly vulnerable to this. We got in the New York Times the next day, we were on television, etc. You've got to think out of the, I mean, that you probably won't want to do that, but think out of the box. And I'm sure you can do that, and your people can do that. We've got to be brave and courageous and creative and risk maybe our lives to save the lives of our children. And I guess for me it comes down to how much do you love your children? That why make sure they clean their teeth and have a good education when they have no future? If you really love them, you'll devote your whole life to this, to turning around the Canadian and the American population, and really good luck.
No, thank you.
Very moving. Remember your humanity and forget the rest, as Einstein put it. Okay, well, you are now going towards these various workshops, and je vous souhaite un bon travail.